Hello, everybody. So today is a very busy day for me. So a short video about patience. Patience is a virtue in short supply. Many of you have been asking me in the comment section, what's going on with Tesla? What are you doing with your Tesla? And the quick answer to that is I'm just sitting on my Tesla and I'm waiting. And I've been waiting a long time. And I'll keep waiting, and that's okay. We wait, we just wait. If you look at the Tesla performance, it's been a zero since January of 2021, so 4 years and a half. Hasn't done much, but if I look at, say, SoFi, another stock that I own, 4 years and a half hasn't done much, hasn't really gone anywhere, and it's just what you have to be willing to do. You need to have patience. These assets can pop at any time, but you don't know when. And sometimes you're sitting on what infamous Jim Cramer has called dead money, but you really don't have a choice because nobody really knows when things pop. For example, Bitcoin, you can see, has had, typically 4 years for Bitcoin. Bitcoin typically does nothing for 4 years, and then it increases multi-fold. If you go to the miners, say the Bitcoin miners, you're looking at a 5-year period. But eventually assets pop, and that's why I own them. But a whole lot of nothing can happen between 4 and 5 years before they pop. Even ARK Invest is making a comeback. This is an ETF that I have a small position in. I guess I'm one of a few who never ever sold it. And I'm pleased to announce that ARKW, which has always been the better ARK ETF, by the way, I'm pleased to announce that, give it a few months. We might be back to all-time high on ARK Invest, and people just overconsumed the emotion, and she was the best, and overnight she was the worst. And then you realize that over the long run, the performance investing in innovation has been superior. But it's just people don't zoom out. They're in a hurry. And so if you're worried about Tesla, if you're worried about the spat between Elon and T, if you're worried about that, you're probably too focused on the short term and not focusing out on the very, very, very long run. And this makes it problematic for leaps, for example, as I'll get to in a second. Anyways. Even the Fed, by the way, will be dovish again. To me, the Fed will be dovish in May 2026 when a new chair is announced. And Trump said he's going to announce the new chair pretty soon. And we know that chair will probably be the most dovish thing ever because he wants the interest rates down. So even as I see in my part of Texas, some fire sales of real estate of people getting desperate to sell their house for a year and a half, and they just do huge price cuts. Maybe you wait 2 years and you don't have to do any of that. And so people lack patience. People like patience. And so there's a few takeaways in this video. I want to make sure I add value. The first takeaway is your time horizon based on first principles? And the point I want to make is that in finance, we use agricultural cycles, like literally we use yearly predictions, yearly targets, quarterly targets. Why are we using those in finance? Because frankly, the quarters, they're based on the seasonal cycle, and years, it's based on the 4 seasons. It's full seasons of cycles. So we are literally judging companies via time frames that fit agriculture, and these time frames only fit agriculture. These time frames don't fit companies. These time frames don't fit business and society. To the best of my study of this, business and society moves in 5-year cycles. In some cases, it's a decade cycle. Probably 4 to 5 years is the time needed for business to move, not yearly. And so that's why we get confused judging companies quarterly instead of judging companies over much longer periods of time. So, again, patience is a virtue. We have to be patient. Real estate, by the way, moves into even longer cycle. This is the best example of a low velocity cycle. Real estate, you're gonna be talking about a decade to see meaningful movements one way or another. That's how long it takes. So once again, you must be willing to sit in an asset before it pops, and this is problematic for leaps. And the reason why I talk about leaps is that I followed for Tesla for years, and I myself have some leaps on Tesla for 2026. I'm realizing these leaps may have been a mistake. I don't know. We'll see. But we're about to see some time decay in those leaps starting pretty soon, right? And that's the problem when you're trying to time assets which move across 5-year periods. If you add leaps on, say, a Tesla or a SoFi, these assets clearly move in 5-year periods or 4-year periods. And so depending on how you timed your leaps, you may be even in trouble with the leaps. Owning the common stock is the only way to have a call option to infinity. When you own the common stock, you simply have an option on the cash flows of the company whenever they come. And sometimes it's a 5-year period. So timing this is not easy. That's why I think patience is a virtue. Now, I'll conclude with this, talking briefly about Bitcoin Treasury companies. As you know on this channel, I've discussed them a lot for a long time. And a key question in assessing any business is the velocity of the money flow, the velocity of a business. How long does it take for one turnaround for a business venture? How long does a turnaround come from the business venture, right? If you're a home builder, you'll probably get a shot at making money every time a house is built. And it takes, 6 months to build a house. So if you're a home builder, your velocity is not really great. If you're Amazon, your velocity is awesome. If you're Amazon, in many areas now you have same-day delivery, and so your velocity of money at Amazon is hours or day. People when they're hooked on Amazon, they buy on Amazon every day. That's a pretty good velocity of money. If you look at Tesla, well, the velocity of money for building a new plant, that's not very good. That's a year and a half. That's how long it takes. Develop products, that's probably velocity of a few years, multiple years. Selling a car, well, it depends, but from the customer standpoint, the velocity is probably every 5 to 7 years. That's why Tesla's doing everything to move towards AI. The AI move of Tesla means that you're able to move velocity from making one sale every 5 years on a per customer basis to making one robotaxi ride every day per every person who potentially could use it. So you're increasing your velocity tremendously. AI has shown us that business velocity is a thing. You can scale to hundreds of millions of paying users, $10 a month, very quickly with AI. And so that's why these businesses that have higher velocity grow much faster. But at the end of the day, patience is still a virtue that you gotta have when you invest. So how long must we wait? I don't know, but I think business cycles for most traditional businesses, even the most innovative ones, when they are tied to industry, when they are tied to interest rates, when they are tied to real estate, to banking, to regulation, to political cycles, that 4 to 5 year time frame really holds. And Bitcoin Treasury companies, they may be onto something, because of the quickness at which they are able to accumulate the Bitcoin, and the quickness at which they're able to accumulate their bag. In fact, they accumulate much faster than miners can mine it. And if you look at BTC Treasury companies, they're very similar to AI in the sense that in AI you can do an iteration. You can create value really quickly with AI and iterate and sell and iterate and sell and iterate and sell. You can do that, multiple times a minute, multiple times a second. Well, this is very similar to the ATM transactions of BTC Treasury companies. You can issue stock, buy the Bitcoin right away in a loop, and you can do this very quickly without having to have insane operations. The velocity is much faster, say, for Bitcoin Treasury companies. Also, there's the issue, and this is something I need to work on and make a video on this. I'll conclude with this. When money flows through your income statement, you're being slowed down by the tax. Paying the tax is not a problem, but it slows you down because you go through GAAP accounting and you got to calculate your tax. And and it slows you down much more. Kind of like a business that goes through insurance reimbursement is slowed down because it takes 6 months to get health insurance reimbursing you in the case of, a HIMSS versus a Teladoc, for example. Taxations, procedures, regulations, they are a slowdown on a business. The business can't grow as fast. And Bitcoin Treasury companies figure it out, but when you just issue shares and you add value to the business via your cash flow statement straight onto the balance sheet, you go much faster than doing it via the income statement straight onto the balance sheet, because the income statement has all of these items that you have to go through, report, calculate on a quarterly basis, optimize your tax, etc., etc., etc. And by the way, a lot of similarities with banking, with airline miles here. It's a tangent. I may cover this at some point. It's a tangent, but there's different ways to get money into a business than the sales line. And when you try to get money into the business through other ways than your sales line, right? You typically can do it with much faster velocity because you're not slowed down by gap and you're not slowed down by tax. And of course, when you're trying to compound, it's very important to be compounding tax-free. So anyways, this was a bit of a different video. Like I said, I don't have too much time today, so this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. This was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is just entertainment, only entertainment. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Hoping you were entertained. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.